Hello, and welcome to the Weird Waves podcast. My name is Taylor, and this is episode 53. On this week's podcast, we are talking to Dr. Natalie Hubbard, aka Tally Joy, on Instagram. I have to say, it has been a while since I laughed so hard during an interview. Sometimes you meet people virtually and you just instantly bounce off each other's vibes, and that's 100% what's happened. What an excellent interview. It's super interesting to talk to her about surfing, her board collection, the waves, her love-hate relationship with the New York wave, and I really hope that you guys get a kick out of this episode like I did. It's really that human connection that I love about the podcast. I haven't really been able to meet that many new people, as none of us really are right now with all of the COVID, and so this virtual meeting just really gave me such a good feeling, and I hope that you can feel that really good energy through this episode.
Oh, it's because I started recording. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Awesome. Oh my gosh, your backdrop of boards is amazing.
Oh, thank you. That's a few of the selection.
Yeah, oh my gosh. Are you like a board person? Like you have a lot of boards?
I guess I have about 7 boards.
Okay, that's where I'm at too.
I have a lot. Okay.
Yeah. It's funny. I had one of the first episodes that we did was with Robin Lanai. She does like the cartoons, and where I was surfing in New Zealand, they would call the girls, or we made up this term, like a board whore. Is like a girl that has like a million boards. Like, don't buy me shoes, don't buy me purses, just buy me more boards.
Yeah, that's basically where I am. But then I have a friend who teases me and says that in general I'm a gearhead.
Okay, I like that. Gearhead, that's cool.
Yeah, so that's like our joke amongst ourselves. But he's a gearhead, so it takes one to know one.
I mean, that's part of the fun, isn't it?
It is part of the fun, like a different ride from a different board, different conditions. For me, like different conditions I like to ride different boards in. So. And then just learning a new board and experiencing a new board is always super fun too.
I'm totally in the same boat. I've had to kind of reel myself back in a little bit because I found that it was maybe stifling like my progression because I had to adjust so many times to the boards, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So I'm really trying to stick with my I have this 8-foot single fin that I just love, and I'm kind of trying to, like, I went really intense, really switching up the boards, really whatever. I just kind of cut the quiver down a little bit, and I'm trying to go a little bit more base level, I guess.
Yes, I feel like I've been kind of slowly finding the quiver that's like building my perfect quiver. And so I've did a few things, and there are a couple boards I'd love to get down the road. But now I kind of really have an idea of what I enjoy riding and what I prefer to ride. Yeah. And so, it's starting to coalesce more into something a little smaller.
That's awesome. Yeah. How did you start surfing?
I started surfing, I believe the end of this summer will be my 7-year anniversary. Okay. And so I started surfing really happenstance. It was very bizarre. So I'm a surgeon, and I would always, in between cases, we hang out in the operating room lounge where, there's the nurses, surgeons, some reps for like medical devices. And someone who became my dear, dear friend was a medical rep device salesman for an orthopedic product. And he was super cool, and we used to always kind of joke around and laugh at each other's like silly comments, and we became friends. And he always used to talk about surfing. Okay, I got a swell's hitting. I got to get out of here. I'm going to go surfing. I went surfing this morning. And so finally I stopped him, and I was like, dude, what's up with all this surfing? We live in New York.
Yeah.
like many people at that point in time, I did not realize, even though we live off of an ocean, that you could surf in New York or adjacent to New York City. And so finally I was like, dude, what's up with this surfing thing? Like, where do you go surf? And he was like, yeah, you can surf. You can surf in Queens, a place called Rockaway Beach. You could go out to Long Island. You could go to Jersey. And so he just kind of educated me on that. And it really like piqued my interest. And so I would always kind of engage him in conversation about surfing from that point on. And so finally, I got to a point really in my career where I was just working a lot. Well, actually, I guess we're always working a lot, but I was working a lot. I was a little burnt out, a little tired, and I needed something. I'm like, I need to do something to invigorate me. I need to do something. Like, I don't know what it is, but I want to do something different. And so I got back to him. I was like, so about this surfing thing. And it just so happened that his girlfriend at the time, wife and mother of his children now, wanted to learn how to surf. And so they said, look, we're going to go to this place in Costa Rica. You should check them out. They're really great at teaching people how to surf. Costa Rica is a great place to go surfing. Come join us, or why don't you book a vacation and go learn how to surf? And so like on a whim, a couple of weeks later, I just randomly booked a vacation to go to Costa Rica, and with the whole objective of surfing there. And it just so happened that he and his wife now ended up booking vacations for that same period of time. And so that's where I learned how to surf for the first time.
Wow.
And yeah.
Which part of Costa Rica were you in?
I was in Tamarindo.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I know a lot of people go to Tamarindo, and a lot of people have been to Witch's Rock before, and I went there, and that's where I learned to surf for the first time.
Yeah, I haven't been there. We had a girl, we have a friend of the podcast that lives there, and I've just heard that it's a really nice place to learn how to surf.
It is. For me, it was a great place to learn how to surf. And over the years, I have many dear friends that live in the area there now. And it was a great experience for me. I guess like many people, I got hooked after my first wave. I'm like, duh. Like, why haven't I been doing this before now?
So are you, which part of New York City are you in?
I live in Rockaway Beach now.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah. And so I'm like, and I need to live right across the street from the ocean. There you go.
That is awesome. Oh my gosh, that is so awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So then you kind of like, you commute into the city, and do you work in the city or you work out by Rockaway?
Well, my old practice, because I recently left my old practice that I was a member of, was in Queens. So it kind of worked out well for me. I worked there for many years, off and on for a decade. And my most recent stint was for about 3 years. I moved back to New York because I was living in Northern California for a while. So I moved back to New York, and when I moved back to New York, I decided to move to Rockaway because I spent all my time here anyway when I was living in New York City previously. So, yeah, my commute to work wasn't very bad at all. And living here at the beach was awesome because I could literally like grab 30 minutes to an hour, regardless of how early my start time was. I could always kind of squeeze in like a surf here and there. And so it was just really great for me because it helped to keep me centered and grounded. And I got to surf most days.
That's just like the absolute dream. That's so cool. That is just awesome.
Thank you. I love it. And it's a beautiful community too. I have so many friends here, and it's really like a sense of community. Like everyone knows people know your dog, people know you just kind of look after each other in a very like neighborly way. And I love it. I love it here.
It's really cool to hear because I surfed Rockaway I think 2 years ago when I was in New York City for like a conference, and I'm not a city person at all. And so also on top of being in New York, I definitely came to Rockaway with like, I'm going to be surfing with a bunch of New Yorkers and they're going to be really mean. And I was so surprised it was totally the opposite. Like it was so, there's that, when you get off the subway at the stop, there's like a little surf shop like under, it's in the same, or at least it was at the time, there was one like right under.
That would be Breakwater.
Yeah, it's like right under the Rockaway stop, I guess.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That was so, like, there was like some guy.
By the way, and they're awesome there.
It's a what? What did you say?
My friend owns that shop, and they're absolutely amazing there.
Oh, they were so they were so nice. The guy just let me leave my stuff there because I was in for the day. I rented a board. It was like really reasonable. The whole thing was very like it's not what I was expecting at all, and I just thought it was really just really cool. And I heard from Christina in Jamaica that Rockaway, that the crew is like this.
Yeah, we kind of roll deep. We look out for each other too, and we support each other, and we kind of roll deep. And it's a lot of women surfers here in New York too. So there are a lot of women, and my surf gang or whatever are my peeps. And Christina is definitely a part of the crew now. And she's like a sister from another mister. We were laughing about that on text previously, but I love her. Her energy is beautiful. She's a beautiful soul.
It's you can see the connection when you start to meet people that are so into surfing. I mean, I haven't met her, I haven't met you, but when you start to meet these different people through the podcast and stuff, you're like, yes, this is what surfing is about. It's like this vibe, you know?
And that's the part of surfing that I didn't realize I would gain, because I've played sports my whole life. I was always an athlete from, I can't even remember not having a sport to participate in. Like my whole life I've done something. And I did individual sports for a bit in my life too. And so it's really, and I don't know why I didn't anticipate that surfing would also open up a whole new community of people and friends and the bonds that I would develop through surfing. But it just like amazes me when I think about it, so much so that it's hard to envision my life pre-surfing. I'm like, what did I do before I surfed again? Like, like all these people I didn't know. I'm like, it's hard to envision the time period before I knew them. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's just like one link, and it's like one thing. And if you get the surfing, then you can kind of, I feel like I instantly know at least a pretty good amount about you. Like I can at least like feel like I can understand a certain amount of like where your head's at when I meet another surfer. It might not be 100%, but there's just like that, okay, like I know what I'm dealing with here when I meet another person who surfs.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
So I do have a question about surgery.
Mm-hmm.
Or surgeons versus doctors. Is it true that the surgeons are like the jocks and the doctors are kind of like the nerds? Because I have to say, it sounds like you fit that stereotype a little bit.
I might be a little stereotypical in some respects, but in other respects not, but kind of, because internal medicine and other areas of medicine where you're not doing technical things, it very much so is a team approach too, because we get together, we discuss patients, and even though they're not rushing off to the operating room after, it's definitely, it has a team approach built to it. But something, I think the physicality of being a surgeon is where that stereotype comes from, because we're not just discussing patients and discoursing on patients and researching things and being, nerdy, because we definitely are nerdy too. I mean, you might think you're cool, but you're definitely a cool nerd, just
okay.
But it's there's a physicality to it. Like you'll spend 12 hours on your feet, like actively manually doing things, and so it a lot from being an athlete, I definitely believe carried over to my life as a surgeon, and that's also what attracted me to surgeon. I love the technical, physical aspect of my work.
Do you have a specialization or specialty, or?
I did fellowship training in minimally invasive surgery and robotics, and my love, what I discovered through that fellowship training and towards the end of my general surgery residency, is that I really enjoyed hernia repair, complex hernia repair, and laparoscopic surgery. So that really became my specialty or my passion in surgery. But it just so happened that the first job in my that I took out of my fellowship training when I was an attending, so that's when you're practicing on your own basically, was as a member of the trauma surgery department. So I also grew to become a trauma surgeon, even though I didn't do my fellowship training in trauma surgery. But I did my general surgery training in Detroit, Michigan, at a hospital called Henry Ford Hospital, and it is a level 1 trauma center, and it is very gnarly. We did a lot of trauma surgery during our residency training. And if you had asked me, would you become a trauma surgeon after residency? I was like, oh, no, absolutely not. I'm not going to do any more trauma. So it's funny how you're right in many ways, because that's exactly what I became, a general surgeon who also did a lot of trauma surgery throughout my career. But as I'm growing, I am redefining myself within surgery, and I'm slowly starting to phase out some of the trauma surgery because it is very grueling. It's very taxing on the body and then also on your lifestyle, and but that's been my career though.
That's so interesting. So is it like, are you on call for a certain amount of time and then a certain amount of time you're in the hospital, or what does that look like for you?
What it looks like on average is I would spend 1 to 2 days a week doing a 24-hour call, but in reality, 24-hour calls are 30-plus hour calls. And as a trauma surgeon at a level 1 institution, you take call in-house, so you live at the hospital for that period of time. And then you have an elective practice where you do your elective general surgery and all the other, and then take care of your patients that you have in the hospital too.
So right now, are you kind of on like a semi hiatus vacation because there's not a lot of general surgeries going on?
I'm on a hiatus. Is fascinating because I decided the end of last year that I was going to revamp my lifestyle. I was just going to go for broke and just do it, just totally revamp everything. And I had met a physician surfer couple when I was working in California, who are very near and dear to me now. And they did locum tenens. And with that, it's basically contract work for doctors. And so they used to always tell me, Natalie, eventually you're going to do what we do. And I'm like, I'm not sure, the variability. And, they're like, it'll grow on you. And eventually you're going to figure out that this is what's going to work best for the lifestyle that you want to create. And they were correct. and so I decided to leave my permanent position to do essentially contract work for hospitals. And of course, that was before coronavirus. So definitely coronavirus traumas dried up during the coronavirus period, interestingly enough. And so this has ended up being kind of like a bit of a hiatus for me as I'm waiting for things to go back to normal in the area of medicine that I practice. Yeah.
Wow. Mm-hmm. That is interesting. So there's less trauma maybe because people are hanging out inside more, or
inside more, they're behaving more. A lot of trauma, unfortunately, comes from misbehaving. So
okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, so they're behaving more, and so basically, most of the focus of the medicine has definitely been on ICU care, ICU admissions, medical ICU work, intensivists. That's outside of, even though I did a lot of that in my career, I'm not fellowship trained in that area of medicine.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So did you go on some contracts before all of this started, or?
No, I went on a surf vacation. Actually.
Oh my goodness.
I went to Nicaragua. It was amazing. I went to see my family, who I had not seen in probably about 5 months or so because of my work schedule. And then when I came back 2 weeks later, New York City was on lockdown. Wow. So it was completely unplanned for, but hey, you got to roll with the punches. Sometimes the universe decides, no, this is what's going to happen instead. And so, yeah.
Wow.
So right now I'm kind of looking at different contracts and getting ready to get geared back up to get into the hospital.
That's good. So will you try to take contracts that are like closer to a surf break? And then when you're there, are you doing like an Airbnb situation? Like, how
That
does
would be beautiful, wouldn't it? But no, I plan on primarily working here in New York locally. And
Okay.
then, and the contracts can vary. They can be long weekends. They could be 1 to 2 weekend stints. Because I have done locum in the past when I lived in California before I moved back to New York. And so it really is based on their needs and yours. Now, if a contract in Hawaii came my way or California and it was a good fit, I would not turn it down. And the contracts provide for, in general, your housing accommodations. Yeah, but I have a pup now, so that also affects my travel and how far I would travel. Yeah.
You have a quarantine buddy.
I do. I went to go pick her up from my parents before all this happened. It's just interesting, like the timing. It really was completely unplanned for. But yeah, that's my bud. She had been living with my parents because I was working so much. I just didn't have the time at the time to, to take care of a puppy. And so now she's here with me, so it's awesome.
That's so nice.
Yeah, we've been bonding.
I'm just gonna ask you quickly, do you maybe have some like headphones with a mic? I just feel like there's a slight echo, and I think that might help us. It's not terrible, but I also think...
Was it my air conditioning, maybe?
No, I just think it's the apartment. I think it's like an echo from the apartment. So if you have like maybe...
I never used Bluetooth, and let me go see, because I had some, and I think I got rid of them though. Hold on 1 second.
If not, I'll like edit it. But if you could find it, that would be great.
If I come closer, does it? No, it's just the echo.
It's just the echo of the room.
Oh, darn. Hold on 1 sec. Let me see.
Yeah.
Aha! Wonderful. I found them. I actually... Oh, no. Oh, yes. Okay. Okay, is this better?
Yes.
Excellent.
Okay. Yes, that's awesome. What ends up happening, which is interesting, is that my like voice echoes out of your computer speakers. And then also there's less echo when the mic is like right here because it only picks up your voice.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah, this is way better. Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
We both have our like when I looked, do you watch the WSL?
I do, more now than I used to tell you the truth. When I first started surfing, I actually wasn't really, I didn't look at a lot of professional surfing events. But over the past few years, I've started to get more into professional surfing too.
When I looked at myself in the thing today, I thought I kind of looked like an announcer because I've got like the tropical shirt and the big headphones on with the mic. It's just,
You do.
I thought about that. Yeah, I was like, oh wow, I'm really like on brand here today. Like I need a big puffy mic to do the on-site interviews.
Totally. You look legit.
It's so funny.
But I like that shirt though.
Thanks. You know what? It's actually...
I'm digging it.
Thank you. It's a dress. I got it in Uruguay. My husband and I went to a wedding there, and I was like, I saw... This is how people dress there. They wear very bright, very tropical, like loose clothing, but
I love it.
Yeah, that was so I bought a lot of clothes while I was there. So stylish.
Nothing wrong with that.
So where all have you traveled for surf?
I've traveled Costa Rica, Nicaragua. I was in Hawaii for a while about 5 years ago. I spent a month in Hawaii, California, up and down the coast in California. Mexico, I used to go to Mexico a lot for surfing, mainly the Sayulita region. And where else? I think I believe. Oh, I surfed in Trinidad. That was awesome.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was dope. That was really dope. And I surfed also in Barbados, and that was pretty dope too.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I've heard the islands, those Pacific or whatever, smaller islands have a
Hmm.
little bit more laid back
Super laid
surf
back.
vibe.
Yeah, it's like a handful of people surfing like this beautiful reef break. It's like, I mean, come on, you can't. I mean, I don't want to blow up their spot, but you can't
Yeah,
go
yeah.
wrong. Maybe
Well,
they
that's
do want their spot blown up, though. It's nice.
right.
Usually the guys that I met, they want other people to know how beautiful it is there
That's
and to
cool.
have the opportunity to surf there, too.
That's a nice feeling. Is Rockaway right now crowded because there's so many people not consistently working, or what's it like out there?
I have to say the break is definitely a little more crowded than it typically is, like, during off hours, or even like in the morning time. People are starting to return to the beach more in droves. I noticed like the past couple weekends, it's been super crowded. Um, and definitely the lineups are more crowded than they used to be. But in general, I feel as though every couple years the lineups get more and more crowded than they used to be when I first started coming out here 7 years ago.
And before, when you lived in the city, did you take your board on the subway?
Only a few times because I actually lived in Brooklyn.
Ah,
I
okay.
know, I'm not like a legit New York City surfer because I had a car. Like, how many New Yorkers have cars? Not many.
I'm just envisioning like somebody on the subway with a board.
Yeah, but I did on occasion. I did take
Yeah.
my surfboard on the subway. Yeah, and people kind of look at you like, oh, okay.
Probably they've seen weirder things on a subway though, honestly.
Exactly. They look and then they're like, whatever, this is New York.
Are you a New York native?
No, I'm
Or
not.
where?
I grew up in Detroit,
Oh, okay.
Detroit,
I'm from
Michigan.
Michigan too. Yeah. Oh.
Did you hear? Oh, so is Ola. She's from Michigan also. Sorry, I had to put her up.
Oh, that's okay.
Okay. I think she's done. Okay. She fancies herself a guard dog,
Okay.
but she's only gonna lick you to death.
Yeah. That's our dog's kind of like that too. He sounds and also looks like he's a good guard dog. Like he
Hmm.
checks things out, but there's only been a couple people that he had a negative reaction to, and I always tell my husband like those are bad dudes. Those are some bad people.
I know,
You
like,
know?
I don't care if the dude is smiling. That's a bad one right there.
Yep, yep.
Yeah, they
That's
know
you
animals and
know.
babies, right?
Yeah, they have that sense.
Hmm.
But I value so much having an animal right now. I mean, it's getting a little bit better as things are maybe returning to normal. But
Hmm.
when we were in like the quarantine, just having that animal, I felt was such a like just decompress.
It
Like I don't
is.
know.
It
To,
is. It's a blessing. Yeah.
it changes the whole like I don't know, it changed the whole dynamic of whatever. So then I like sent videos to my friends of like me talking to my dog. I'm like, this is how quarantine is now. I just like talk to my dog like he's a person and it's totally fine.
Hmm. It is, especially before the concept of bubbles emerged, or before you really started to get a little more comfortable venturing out and, seeing people, of course, socially responsible. It was me and the pup, so we had lots of conversations too. We did a lot of bonding. It was good for us because I hadn't been around her because she was with my parents, and I would see her every 3 months. So it was really good for us to bond like that too. I guess something good that came from all this. Yeah, very difficult period.
Yeah. And what is it like now in New York and what was it like during like the lockdown phase?
I think my experience with lockdown was our people who live here in Rockaway, our experience with the lockdown was probably quite a bit different than those who didn't have access to like a distraction like being able to go to the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, responsibly, we would go to the ocean because the beaches were never closed here.
Okay.
And so all of my friends, we would always have conversations. And there were different camps of people, those who didn't feel that you should be surfing, and then those that were like, no, surfing is okay. And, I respect everyone's opinion. But me, like many of my friends, we would responsibly go. So I usually surfed early in the morning. I would make sure that I was always distanced from other people. Coming and going to the beach, I'd have my mask on. But so it was a different experience because you weren't completely claustrophobic, just stuck inside all the time. And even just being able to go on the boardwalk and experience the boardwalk and go for some exercise or walking along the ocean, I think was a form of therapy, which made it a little more endurable or tolerable. But my friends that were on the front line, because I would speak to them on occasion to check in on them, you know, I mean, we have to, I don't know if people are praying people or if people are spiritual people or what have you, but just knowing what it's like being a trauma surgeon and taking care of people who ultimately may die on you and seeing a lot of death, that does a lot to the psyche, and it's very traumatic. And I know people are very grateful for those who are frontline workers, but there's a lot of PTSD that people are going to have to contend with too, you know, in having worked through those experiences. And I hope that those folks, the nurses and physicians, continue to have the support of their communities and their hospitals to also deal with the grieving process or their mental health.
Yeah, I think that is, I would imagine that to be something that is right now overlooked just because
Mm-hmm.
of it seems like the focus is on like try to figure out a solution, where the people who have been dealing with the issue are maybe
Mm-hmm.
getting less, I don't know. I think they're getting the accolades, but less about the accolades and more like you're saying about the care and stuff, because this is not something that most people have ever been through before.
No, no, not at all. And just my time as working in trauma, that alone can be very traumatic. That alone can lead to burnout, and so and I just know what people have gone through, and I just hope that they're continuing to get all the support that they need, because you also have to remain healthy. In order to help others, you have to be able to
Yeah.
help yourself too. You have to also be able to be in a healthy place.
Hmm.
And
And for you,
sometimes that is
yeah.
overlooked in general in medicine and in surgery. The amount of physicians that face burnout and face like all the things that come from burnout.
Is that part of why you were drawn to surfing?
Yes, yes, that is what drew me to surfing, is being on the brink of burnout and needing something that was enriching to myself, physically and also spiritually or, mentally. I've never been good at meditation. And I'd always been an athlete. And as I got older and further into my career, I'd go running on occasion or what have you. But, it's not like I definitely did something athletic every day. And surfing brought that back into my life. And so it was a beautiful reset point for me, because I think my body has just always been patterned to know how to function optimally if I'm also functioning close to optimally physically. So if my physical isn't right, then eventually like my mental or spiritual space feels kind of off kilter. And for me, surfing helped rebalance that. And then also things that I didn't think I would get from surfing, like just I don't know, there's something meditative about being in the ocean, being in something that's so much greater than you, but um, uh, it's nourishing. It nourishes the soul. As hokey as that may sound, it's not even hokey. It just does that. It's like food for the soul, or being in the middle of something beautiful all the time. Like when you take in beauty, that you walk away with that much more of a positive like balance within yourself.
And so, that's how I discovered surfing, is because I needed something to reset me and to nourish me.
Is it something that's common burnout with surgeons, and are you kind of taught that that's like normal? Are you told ways to deal with it? Like, how is it burnout in that world?
Unfortunately, it's not something that's spoken about openly and freely for the most part. And it's not something that in your training you're taught to deal with. Because I remember my mentor, he described surgery to me when I was like a young person, like maybe my first, second year of residency. He said, Natalie, it's like the military. And it is. Surgery is very much so like the military. You just get in there, you get the job done. It's not a sign of weakness to ask for help, but don't call me in the middle of the night. Like figure it out. Ask for help when you need to ask for help. But it's it is, but it isn't a sign of weakness. And so it's like that mentality, like that messaging, which when you're young and you're gung ho and you just a little A type, because I'm sure every surgeon has a little A type in their personality. You just want to do it all. You want to be a Superman. You want to be a superwoman, super person. And the reality is that we are all mortal. And the reality is that we all have a breaking point. And I think that I hope that in surgical education and medical education in general, they start talking about that. And how do you keep yourself healthy as you feel yourself reaching that physical, emotional, or mental breaking point? And also having safe spaces where you can talk about that and you can have resources for healing, or even just camaraderie brings about healing. Like, yeah, I've been there too, because quite often you feel like you're the only one. And as long as you feel like you're the only one, you don't take those steps to reach out for help or to get healing. Like, hey, I'm going through a tough stint. I had a really rough 3 months. I was working 100-hour work weeks, plus work weeks a couple weeks in a row. And I'm not going to complain because we're supposed to just keep our head down and keep going. But but allowing yourself that space to say, no, I need a break. I need some healing. I need a reset. Yeah, it's tough. I think it takes some maturity too to get to the point where you feel comfortable with just recognizing that.
I would imagine it's must be so complicated. I think that so many people anyways are afraid of burnout, but also like appearing to be like that being a sign of weakness.
Yes, that's the big thing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I could imagine that in medicine it being even more, I don't know, maybe like pressure, because you guys are kind of like, the public views you as invincible in a way, like, oh, a doctor said this, a surgeon told me this.
Yes.
Like somebody, like, it's a very high respect level field of work.
And we do things where you feel, oh, yeah, like, that's pretty, if I really explain to people what I just did tonight, like, yeah, that's pretty big. It's pretty awesome. You save lives. You touch lives, and you have an intimacy with someone's body that they'll never have with their own body. Like, I've never been inside my own body, but I've been inside your body, and so, and I think, but it's just so important to still maintain like an extreme sense of your own humanity, because and to also not let other people's view of you on somewhat of a pedestal feed negatively into your ego. Because too, sometimes, burnout and all of that means really confronting your own ego.
Yeah, but I don't know if people
to do.
Yeah, what a doozy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. I think a lot of what surfing does is just completely strip you of your ego. I think it's like constantly the ocean telling you, you're not shit, you're not shit. You're not shit at all. Like, you thought you are good. Well, just kidding. Here's this. At least that was my experience.
Yeah.
Let me tell you how not shit you are. I mean, for lack of better terms, that, you see it all the time.
It's humbling. It's humbling.
100%.
Yes, it is.
And
Then
it's
you have those moments where you're like, oh, you're like, yeah, you're like, I can legitimately say that felt good, and I think it looked good too.
yeah,
But it's super
exactly.
humbling.
Yeah, it is. It's one of those things. For me, it makes me feel so small.
Hmm.
Like, and I love that feeling of being like, wow, it like takes pressure off of me in a way that I I don't know if anything else has ever done that for me before. It's
Hmm.
like, wow, I'm so like I'm floating on a biscuit in the middle of the abyss, and I'm just so tiny here, you know?
Hmm. Yeah, you're like, it makes you feel sometimes so insignificant in the whole just like scheme of things, but sometimes it feels good to have that anonymity and feel that sense of, being small in this big world.
Yeah, it's only a surfer knows the feeling, right? Is one of those things. But it
Yeah,
it
yeah.
frustrates me sometimes, and my husband has not gotten on me about this, but I I feel so deeply about surfing, and then when I talk to someone like you who I can tell also feels so deeply about surfing, I get so excited, and then sometimes I'll meet someone who they're like, "No, it's like it's just a sport." And I'm
Mm-hmm.
just like, "How can you, not get that, like, and maybe I'm the one who's like all hoo-ha about it,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
it's when you hear somebody who gets it in the same way that I feel, in the same way that I've talked to other people, it just makes me love it more, I guess.
Yes, yeah, and I think maybe for some people it's just a sport, but and of all the sports I've played in my life, and I like have dedicated so much time to them and getting better, and growing in the sport from a young age on. This is different than this other sports that I've participated in. It's more of a lifestyle, um, and and so. And I do. I mean, maybe some people don't feel like that weird, because sometimes folks are like, whatever, it's not like this weird spiritual hokey connection or whatever. But it is. It is. And maybe for those that tend to seek different spiritual experiences, it is for them, and for those who don't, it isn't. But one thing that no one can deny is that it's something we all chase. Is like the
Yeah.
best drug to be addicted to. So we don't have to agree on all the spiritual stuff, but we're all equally addicted. We're all equally chasing the waves and chasing swell and chasing like that feeling we got from the last like best wave of the day or whatever. And so we do all have that in common.
100%. And I forgot who it was that said it, but they said you think that you want to date a surfer if you're not a surfer until you date one, and then you realize that you're just second. You're just like, it's like, oh, do you want to go? Nope, the swell's up, perfect offshore
Yeah.
winds, like, whatever, 15-second period, like, better hang out, better want to be on the beach.
I know. We could be a little selfish and a little late and salty when we show up to events.
I know. Oh gosh, so funny.
Yeah.
I'm curious, I saw the rag and bone picture, which is so interesting.
Oh
So I'm
yeah.
curious how that came about, and is it like a campaign? Is it a one-off? Like, what happened with that?
Over the winter, my friend Mackenzie, who lives in Surf Sea in Rockaway, she's super cool. She and her fiance, Jimmy, shout out to them. She asked me via Jimmy if I would be interested in doing a rag and bone campaign where they wanted to highlight their spring collection using real people who live in Rockaway and like highlight the community of Rockaway, basically. And so she's the art director there. And so I told her, yeah, why not? I've never done anything like that before. Though it's kind of like not really in my nature because I usually don't kind of do the kind of limelight or, like out front and center. I'm more like in the shadows, I do my little thing and no one really knows completely my story, but I guess all that's blown to
Well, a little bit.
it's like I guess, I'm embarking on a new journey now in my life. But and I thought it would be super cool too because our community is so diverse and I know simply by showing up in a room I add something new to a discussion just because, you know, uh, I represent a community, like being an African American woman and being an African American woman who's a surfer and who's also a surgeon. Um, that's an image that you don't see often. And so when she asked me, I did feel like, number one, I thought it was very cool that she thought of me. But I did also feel like a sense of responsibility to show up in that manner for to help change the discourse of what people think folks should be or are, or or are capable of, or whatever, whatever that conversation is that's not always inclusive. And so I told her, yeah, I'd love to do it. And so that's how it came about. We shot it in the winter on a very a windy day.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was cool.
What I saw from Rag and Bone that I think is pretty cool, as well as the different shoots and the different ways that they're using advertising, they lowered their prices.
Yeah, they did.
So during the quarantine, they lowered all their prices, and I thought this is like the smartest. I don't even know if they know how smart it is because so many companies did literally the opposite. Like while we were all tucked away and no one was really paying attention, they raised up their prices even just slightly. And they lowered their prices, and I just thought that whoever is in that marketing department is so smart. Like,
yes, that's like a socially responsible company. And before all of this, the funny thing is Rag & Bone is one of my favorite brands.
their jeans are the best.
The bomb, and their like coats, their jackets. Like I was already kind of a walking ad for Rag & Bone. My other friend is here in the surf community, such an interesting surf community here. But my other friend Tommy is is a designer at Rag & Bone, and even before I met Tommy, I loved Rag & Bone even before I met Mackenzie. So it's kind of cool to be able to be a part of a company that I've always been supporting anyway, and I've always loved.
Yeah, that's really a unique thing. So
yeah, super cool.
In Rockaway, are you getting your boards locally? Are you buying them from surf shops? Are you getting them shaped? What's the like surf shop culture like in your area?
I've brought most of my boards locally at a surf shop. I have one board that I actually just recently sold to my friend, so it's still here in Rockaway. That was shaped by a local shaper out of Jersey, Davy Sky, and it was a twin that I loved, but I actually got it too large, and so I'm gonna try and downsize in the future. But what other boards? I brought some boards from some board swaps. I have one of my boards that I really love is it's a mini nose rider that's a 6'8", that's shaped in Hawaii. It's a brand called Chronic. I brought for my friend at a local swap that we do once a year. I have a board that I acquired for my sister because she lived in LA for a decade and she had a fine line. And when she moved to Atlanta, I was like, you won't be needing this anymore. So, I didn't get that locally, but I really love that. I love that board. My Lost board I brought from the shop that you're talking about, Breakwater, over in the 60s. I love Lost. I think they make great boards. That's my my thruster. And then I have a quad fish from Mandala that I love. And I actually brought that from Mitch's in California. They have amazing customer service. And I brought my longboard from Mitch's too, because I always wanted a Takayama in the pink, like ever since I first rode that board, that was like my favorite longboard. And I finally gifted it to myself last year on my birthday.
That's perfect.
Yeah, but probably about half, a little over half of my boards I got locally here from shops or bought them from friends.
And what are
Yeah.
you looking for, like, in your boards when you buy them? Are you just trying to, like, try a bunch of different things out, or are you looking for a specific feel? What's your...
My favorite board is probably my mandala because it's just beautiful in all different conditions. It's a 5'4" quad and it's a fish. And I took it to Nicaragua and it was awesome, like an overhead surf, like, you know, long period overhead surf. And I also surf it here locally in Rockaway. Like it's great for hurricane swells and it's also great on smaller wave days, like 2 to 3 foot days. So I love that board. And I guess when I buy boards, I'm looking for, I kind of buy boards based on conditions and my abilities.
Okay.
So, like, okay, what am I? And sometimes they're boards that I might not surf that great when I first get them, but I grow into them. It's something that I'm working towards.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had been shortboarding early on when I first started surfing, probably like 2 years in, I started shortboarding out of necessity because I was doing a lot of surfing in Costa Rica during the rainy season. And it's just kind of gnarly and it was hard it was a lot harder to get out to the lineup, to the break on my longer boards because I had to turtle dive. And I'm like, I need to be at a duck dive to get out there faster.
Yes.
And actually, so out of necessity, I started shortboarding. And I found that I really love the feel of shortboarding. I love how the board feels under my body. I like, it feels to me a little more aggressive of a style sometimes. And I like that. And sometimes shortboarding is what suits my personality. I'm more shortboard now than I longboard, but I also really love longboarding. So but I don't tend to longboard on bigger days. Because for me, in my hands,
you want
to feels like a whole lot of board.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Caught in the impact zone on a long board, which is more likely to happen to me, Yes.
I'm the same.
Yeah.
I feel like the drops, I just can't. I just go straight nosedive every time. If it's over a certain point and I'm on a bigger board, I just can't. I don't know. I'm with you.
Yeah, I'm not yet good enough on steeper, punchier waves on a longboard. So I like short boards for steeper, punchier waves. And I do like longboards on big waves that are like gentle giants, like in Hawaii, like that you may find like in Hawaii or at other point breaks. But yeah, so I tend to longboard on smaller days and I tend to shortboard on bigger days. I didn't think I liked fishes when I first started surfing. Actually, I used to say, I don't like fishes. Squirrel. Actually, I used to legitimately say, I don't like fishes. Now I love them. I love
What
fish.
was your reason for not liking them?
I thought they were super squirrely, and I think maybe I just wasn't good enough, or maybe I just maybe I was
too fast or something.
I would get up, so I would catch the wave. I get up, and I was just like, whoa, like what?
Yeah.
I wasn't doing anything. Like I wasn't really riding it. I wasn't really enjoying the wave. But I started surfing fishes again probably just about 2 years ago, a year and a half ago maybe. And I love them. It's my favorite board. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I want to buy another.
I know that's what gets you. It's like trying, I don't know, a million different flavors of ice cream or something.
Yes. But it's the journey, like I'm not going to join the WSL anytime soon. Perhaps if I had started surfing when I was a young cat, I would have had those aspirations. My aspirations are, I love working on my style now. I'm at the point in my surfing where I'm trying to work on style. Or maybe you should, you're always trying to work on style. But I feel like I'm trying to I'm fine tuning different things. There are things I want to do on a wave that I, rather than just riding the wave, like planning out what I want to do on the different sections and connecting sessions and doing things of those sorts. I'm just and so the different boards, like riding a single fin is a different experience than riding a quad is a different experience than riding, in a thruster versus, a twin. And I think I'm at the point in my surfing journey where I can appreciate the difference in what I'm feeling in that experience.
It's nice to hear when people think about moving, like progressing in surfing in such a like dynamic aspect. It's just super interesting because everybody breaks that down in different ways. Like some people are just like, I'm just surfing. And it sounds like you have a specific like semi-methodical way that you're thinking about your surfing. It's really cool to hear.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, sometimes it just depends on my personality. Like, I want to feel like this today. I'm like, I'm going to grab my longboard. I want to feel like that. I'm going to grab. Or also what the waves are looking like. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, I have 3 last questions for you. So the first one is, what is the weirdest wave you've ever surfed?
What's the weirdest wave? I'd have to say Rockaway is the weirdest wave. Because Rockaway is a funky little wave, and people always say if you can learn how to surf here, you can surf anywhere. Because sometimes you love it, sometimes it's just a dirty bastard. And it's just like, why do you suck? Like, why do I keep going over the falls? Stop tossing me. Like, and it's not always perfect conditions. It's when the period gets longer, it's a much more aggressive wave. It can be steep and punchy. And then on the same hand, it could be super mushy and weak. And so there's just so much variability to it. Sometimes you never quite know what you're going to get when you paddle out. And so learning to read waves here on a beach break and learning how to surf Rockaway well is, at first I would get back from vacation. I'm like, God, I was actually feeling, like I'm doing my thing. I'm feeling okay here, in Costa Rica surfing. I get back home and I'm like, God, why do I suck? It's like, but so it's like a great wave to learn on because it can be quite difficult and really funky sometimes.
That's a good answer.
Yeah, it's awesome, but sometimes it's a bastard.
What was your biggest oh shit moment while surfing?
Costa Rica in the rainy season, some years back. Maybe I think I had like a 3-wave hold down. I was stuck in the impact zone, and it was just like a big day. And that's where, in that moment, I truly learned what people had told me. Hey, when you're under, just relax, chill. Wait for things to calm down, come up for air, check out the scene, see if you got to duck back under. And so that's where I really understood that for the first time. And, when you survive like a couple wave hold down, you're like, all right, next time I'll be better prepared for it, but yeah.
Yeah.
And, yeah, but I learned to relax in that moment rather than get nervous and tense. So that's probably like the gnarliest condition. Oh, and my friend also taught me how to climb my leash back up to my board.
Oh, super helpful.
Yeah, super helpful. Because I personally still surf with the leash, especially in conditions like that.
I've always surfed with a leash just because I feel like I can't be trusted to go after my board. I just haven't conditioned myself for that to be the first thing that I do. Yeah. And I've seen a lot of people who think that they can be leashless and and but I think what's interesting, not about the leash, but about like the hold downs, I think some of that has to do with like the meditative aspect of surfing, which is super interesting. Is just like, if you freak out, you're gonna take water in like either your nose or your mouth, basically.
And you use more oxygen.
Yeah, and so I think that can be used in a lot of other situations too, of just like, okay, like I'm not freaking out. I'm just gonna deal with it, and it's gonna be fine. But it's like you have to experience that before you can understand when people tell you, I think.
Yes, I agree 100%. And a part of you is like, okay, I don't want to experience that. Thanks for the knowledge, but how about I only surf when that's not going to happen? But the reality is, you want to surf bigger waves. You want to surf like more gnarly conditions. You have to, that's what you accept, and being prepared for the inevitable is what kind of gets you to that next level too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah. But I have a healthy respect for the ocean, very healthy. Matter of fact, if I'm paddling out, if I don't think I could take a 3-wave hold down, my session's done.
That's smart. That's a good rule of thumb, I think.
Yeah.
It's a good rule of thumb. My last question for you is, what is next for you?
I've been really practicing living in the moment. One of the few times I haven't had this big 5-year, 10-year plan. I kind of gave that up a few years ago. So what's next for me is really discovering where the universe takes me next, like definitely cultivating this new career-wise, like this new path that I'm embarking on. I think my life is changing kind of exponentially right now, and what's next is to be determined.
That's
But
awesome.
I'm going to go with the flow though and enjoy it. I'm going to go with the flow and enjoy it. Even in the time of Corona, I'm going to try and find my joy and hopefully give joy to others too. And and just make it through this.
That is the best way to end a podcast, honestly. That's the best plan is to not have a plan.
There you go. There you go. See, you summed it up. I had a long-winded response, but you got it right there. You nipped it in the bud. Who's the real surgeon here?
I don't know. Not me, I promise you.
I don't know. Surgeons usually tend to not be long-winded, but you got it right there.
Well, but it makes sense. It does make sense. And I do think that, weirdly enough, or maybe not weirdly enough, a lot of people through this Corona thing are kind of having a crisis that leads them to something that is new or something that is better. I'm finding that with other people. I found it with myself, with my husband, with what we've done with our lives. And I think sometimes, in a way, we were all just maybe chugging along, nothing too crazy happening. And then this is a real, like, what are you going to do? What is your life like? What is your happiness, or what is not your happiness? I think that was like a glitch in the matrix and made everybody realize what
matters.
I think so. I think so. So
I think it makes you appreciate the small things that you may have overlooked before, and there's a certain beauty to embracing the unknown.
Yep, I couldn't agree with you more. So thank you so much for doing.
Thank you for asking me. I've never done anything like this before.
Well, I am so glad that you decided to do it, because it's just an excellent, it's cool to have someone who you're like, yeah, I'm kind of like was anonymous, and now I guess, I'm not.
Hello world.
Yeah, but that's like, and this is not like in the podcast, but just between us, I guess, is like, this is what's interesting for me. This is my favorite thing about the podcast, is talking to people that surf, like about surfing, about your life, about whatever, because that's like you talk about, like, oh, I have so many like unique people in my community, like the art director or the whatever, like I love talking to those people, it's like, the surgeon surfer who, found surfing as a way to cope with whatever, like that's awesome. Like it's very good. It's very cool.
Thank you. I love what you're doing. It's beautiful. I got a chance to listen to your podcast too, and I'm listening to back episodes. I'm like, how come I didn't know about this?
Thank you. Well, we're so new. It's been literally just a year, exactly a year for us, and so we didn't want to advertise. We didn't want to like pay anything. We just wanted it to be like, organic or whatever. So like, I just feel like when people find it, they'll find it, and hopefully they enjoy what we do. And,
and it's kind of fun, two people from Michigan talking about the ocean who found the
yeah,
ocean.
it is. It is. You know what? It is. And
yeah.
It is. So when you said Henry Ford, I'm like, I know exactly where that is.
Yeah. Wait, where are you from in Michigan?
So I was raised like around Adrian, Michigan.
Okay.
Yeah, but I used to go to Detroit on a semi-regular basis, especially like in my like partying years or whatever you want to say. And then I almost moved to Eastern Market area before.
Eastern Market.
Me too.
Yeah. I used to live near there. I lived near the new Comerica Park, but I would go to Eastern Market all the time.
It's such a great area, and Detroit is a really good city. And I wasn't a Detroit native. I'm not a Detroit native. I just kind of grew up, my mom's a professor, so I grew up like going to different like events with her that she would do. And when I was traveling internationally, I would find myself dying on the hill defending Detroit. Like other people from like,
it's so violent and it's awful and blah. You're like, oh, okay, hi, yeah, let's start again. My name is Natalie. I'm from Detroit.
Yeah, I'm like, how I just remember getting in this big argument with this guy from Texas, and he was like, you're from Detroit, and I'm like, I'm not from Detroit, but I would tell like non-Americans like I'm from around Detroit, because you don't know like Michigan, you don't know Michigan,
Yeah, exactly.
And a guy was like, you're from Detroit. I'm sorry. I'm like, where are you from? And he said some like random place in Texas. I'm like, I'm sorry for you, I'm not actually from Detroit, but like, what are you doing? Detroit is a great city, and I will die on that hill.
Yeah, we have amazing people there, amazing music community, art community. It's just some cool ass people in Detroit. If Detroit had an ocean, I never would have left.
It's, I didn't surf there. You can surf there, but I did a photo shoot paddling across that the river by like where the border is in like Canada.
Canada and Detroit. Yeah, the Detroit River.
Yeah. Right there. We did like a cool photo shoot, but there is some Detroit surf company.
Ouch. Yes. Actually, I have downtown. Whenever I'm home visiting my parents, I always go there. I have stickers.
That's cool. I haven't been there. I've heard about them. So yeah. But Detroit, man.
Detroit
I love that place.
Yeah, Detroit is a beautiful place.
And the other thing that was funny is my husband and I, when we got his green card, we went to, it sounds so silly, but we went to Windsor just to test it, right? Just to be like,
that's funny, yeah.
We went to Windsor, and like, Windsor is having a very intense economic like situation going on. So if you go to Windsor, and then as you're driving from Windsor going to Detroit, it looks like the pinnacle of like American prosperity. When you're coming over the bridge, like you come from small Windsor and you see Detroit, and it's like, ah, it looks so beautiful coming that way. You're like, yes.
That's awesome. Next time I go, I'm gonna have to like look at that perspective again next time I go home.
Yeah, even if you just like, I don't know, going through Border Patrol and getting over the bridge and going there, it's a good like day trip. It doesn't take that long, and I think I've done it a couple times now, but it's a nice, I highly recommend that perspective. You'll be like, damn, Detroit looks good from a like
you're looking good right now, girl. Yeah, but Detroit, every time I go home, I'm like, who is this? Like, what is this city? It's like something new and something different, and it's this energy that's really kind of like pulsating right now in the downtown, and it's cool. I love it. I love seeing my city doing better and doing well.
It's good. It is a good thing to see, because
waited my whole life to see it. I'm glad I was able to. Yeah.
Well, thank you again.
And that was episode 53. I really hope that you guys enjoyed it. Again, I just really want to thank Natalie. This was just, even re-listening to the episode, editing it, I was laughing, and I left a lot of parts in because I just felt like the conversation was so good it didn't need to be edited out. So thank you guys for listening. As always, we will see you next Monday with another episode. Bye.